Aloha guys, Dr. Tom coming at you from the Hawaiian Islands. We're starting to get into some fascinating stuff now. Our last topic was Dr. Dean Radin and his use of consciousness to test the double slit experiment. Very quickly, we're going to run back through just the highlights. He did some initially did pilot studies that were very promising. He used meditators primarily as test subjects because they could concentrate, and that's what you had to be able to do. Why? Because the double slit was encased in a sealed container and placed several feet from the experimenter or from the test subject, or locked in a steel room in some of the studies, or you were somewhere else on the globe doing it over the internet in some of the other studies. So his initial studies were very impressive. Had a 5 sigma, which is huge. Then he went online for 3 years and did it. They performed 5,000 sessions with human subjects online and 7,000 with the Linux system acting as a control or robot system. What he found was that not only could consciousness collapse the wave function repeatedly over and over and over again without any outside force, because it was sealed, you couldn't say it was light or a camera, but also its consciousness steered the direction of the study. That was phase 1. Phase 2, instead of using trillions of streams of photons, which are light particles, he set up a design that only emitted single photons so you could track it better. Had a small Buddha lamp, an experiment, the Buddha light, eliminated Buddha experiment. Again, the results were impressive with a 2.55 sigma, and they won a prize for that. The meta-analysis of these was quite impressive. Over 16 studies that used the double slit experiment to measure the effects of consciousness. With a fixed effect size, it was 8.9 sigma, gigantic. With a random effect size, it was 3.97, still quite impressive. P-values were very low, which is good. The lower it is, the smaller the number, the better. In psychic research, they like 0.05 or more. These were much smaller than that. Fixed effect size was 5.6 times 10 to the minus 17th. Random effects was 3.6 times 10 to the minus 5th. The odds against chance of this staggering thing. Damn. Another unexpected notice from Rolling Stone magazine. Okay, was this gigantic number right here. It was replicated by a couple of physicists who checked the results, were able to replicate the findings. It was replicated at the University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Did Radin cheat? How do we know they were concentrating, the subjects? Well, one thing, we had an enormous number, but also the ones in the lab had an EEG hooked up to them, which demonstrated that alpha wave desynchronization, which occurs when you're concentrating, was there. How come no one's noticed it before? Well, the effects are small in a lot of these psychic phenomena psi tests, but also someone had. Even the fabulous pair program at Princeton had. What if something was wrong with the device? Well, if it was, it had to be wrong with all 4 because they used 4 different ones. What if it was due to vibration? Well, it was contained within a 2,800-pound steel room. What if timing? Well, they had random decoupling to monitor that. What about temperature variations? Now, granted, guys, these things could do it. Well, they had 4 thermocouplers on the machine to make sure that the temperature gradients were within accepted range and they were steady. Was there p-hacking, where you selectively remove data to make your p-score better? No, analysis showed none. Was selective reporting occurring? No, analysis showed none of that either. And then finally, how can we convince orthodox scientists to accept this study? Well, don't hold your breath, because they won't. Someday, guys, that's my great hope, is that in my own small way here, I can help influence the fact that this stuff is real. And it needs to be accepted. And it will be. It is, slowly but steadily, and eventually. The conclusions, again, very quickly. The role of consciousness in the physical world can be studied. It's been tested many times in many ways. Results suggest that consciousness is an active participant in reality. Consciousness creates reality, guys. Might as well get it in your minds that that's the case. And distance was not a factor. During the online study, people from all over the world, the distance did not play a role in how in the scores and how effective they were. Now, that's true of psychic phenomena in general, so that comes as no great shock. Okay, hierarchy of science. Now, naturally, physics is generally considered to be the most important. They certainly think so. So it's on the bottom of the pyramid. Then chemistry, of course. Then biology, and we're starting to get out there a little bit. Psychology and sociology. Those social sciences are stuck up at the top and of the least importance. Now, if consciousness really is the fundamental aspect of the world, and I certainly think it is, then the role of psychology is going to grow tremendously. Okay, so this well-known hierarchy looks like this: physics, chemistry, biology, and then at the very top, with the way Dean Radin writes, they have awareness. Okay, physics is the base, and as we move upward, each influences a discipline above it with causation. Physics is, of course, the most important, so it forms the base. Mathematicians like to sneak math in at the bottom. Astronomers like to sneak astronomy at the bottom. Okay, we're going to talk just for a moment here about sudden genius, autistic savants. A little later on, I've already prepared the material on it. We're going to do a couple of different video shows just on this phenomenon. But one of the things to talk about how far consciousness can go, or the fascinating aspects of it, is what about the unexplained consciousness of genius? Individuals like Einstein or Mozart or Da Vinci stated that their grand ideas often just popped into their minds. The creativity flowed from outside of them. Dean Radin also comments on amazing savants, autistic savants, like my late son Clint, who was amazingly brilliant. There are also acquired savants, people that get hit on the head. We're going to tell some good stories about that here when we get to it, that suddenly gain these abilities. Or sometimes we just have sudden genius, as the leading researcher in the field calls it, and people just wake up one day and are able to do things that they weren't able to do before. People who've had near-death experiences often come back with knowledge of or demonstrate fierce curiosity about advanced scientific concepts, or able to play a musical instrument they couldn't play before, and things like that. This is amazing stuff, guys, and we'll talk about this in detail. I'll show you a picture of it. But for example, there's a young man he's an autistic savant, and he doesn't know his left from his right. He's a grown man, and he has difficulty counting from 1 to 10. But he can take 2 pianos, roll them up, or he can reach one with each hand, and he can play Flight of the Bumblebees on 2 pianos simultaneously, and can hear something one time and reproduce it. Incredibly complex classical music and things like that. Now, guys, what's the explanation for something like this? Well, we don't know, but one thing is that I think it's an indicator of the potential of human consciousness. Amazing. Okay, again, here's Max Planck, his famous quote, but we've added a little more to it. I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness. Consciousness is fundamental. See, it even says so here. Okay, Dean Radin suggests it's time to modify the hierarchy of science in this to this presentation. On the bottom, he puts awareness. Oh, the physicists, and I don't like that. Then physics. Then chemistry, biology, and psychology. Consciousness is fundamental. Again, guys, I think it goes back to a reductionistic, materialistic point of view. even though Albert Einstein introduced these mind-blowing concepts that changed things in physics and in the way we understand the world in a massive sense, and then his participation, as well as other great scientists, brought the development of quantum mechanics, which showed that instead of having indestructible, eternal atoms bouncing around, we have massive energy fields that are undefined, that we don't know what they are. And from these, matter manifests itself under certain conditions. And it's all probability. Where in Newton's time, they thought that eventually I was going to get ahead of myself, that they would eventually, everything could be predicted, ultimately, in theory, if you knew how these particles moved about. And then Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, Werner Heisenberg said, hey, we can't even determine the position and the momentum of a single electron with absolute certainty. Everything is probability. And I think what it is, it's like the ancients thought a long time ago. Everything is energy, and our consciousness creates the world out of that. And we're going to talk about that. I have a lot of material to present on that and biocentrism. Dr. Tom's at lost for words. My God, call up the National Guard. Now they're just back from Washington. They're rested now. Okay. Watch my videos, guys. Subscribe to my channel. Like them. Tell your friends. Buy my book. You can get it on Amazon or other places. It's about $15. Amazing book. Very soon I will tell the story of this book. It's an interesting story, and it's rather lengthy. We'll go over it in detail. We're going to continue our studies on consciousness. We've got several more videos here to produce to demonstrate two things. Number one, this great energy field, our original topic of about 4 videos, is very similar to what the ancients predicted. Taoism and Qi and all. A lot of people believe that, and I most certainly do, and I have for a long time. They were talking about the same thing. The world is more of a grand thought than it is a machine. And also, the mystery, the staggering, incredible mystery of human consciousness, and the fact that consciousness is what creates the world and not the other way around. The brain, the magnificent brain, plays a role in it in some undefined way, but it's not the answer to it all. And there's plenty of evidence that consciousness can be very advanced for periods of time, like in an out-of-body experience or during lucid dreaming or something. Lucid dream wouldn't count. As you were, but out-of-body would, when the physical brain is not even a player. All right. We're going to call it a day and think about this. Buy my book. Tell your friends. And we will see you next time with another fascinating discussion about consciousness. This is Dr. Tom signing off. And this time I didn't run out of time first.